The question's from Lauren. She says, Grandpa, how did you get into the USNA and what did you major in?
Okay. Well, how did I get into the USNA? Well, I was a junior in high school, and one day the principal, Mrs. Fraser, stopped me in the corridor, and she said, "Would you like a fourth alternate appointment to the Naval Academy?" And I said, "Sure," hardly knowing what it all was, but of course it's like a fifth chance for one seat at the Naval Academy. But it let me take the exam, and so I passed the exam. Well, then the next year, of course I didn't go because somebody else, one of the other four people, decided they wanted to go. So the next year, a senator died, and a relative of mine by the name of Berkeley Bunker was appointed to fill the Senate seat. So I asked Berkeley Bunker if he might have an appointment, and he said yes. So there it was. I got an appointment. I already passed the exam. All I had to do was go. Pretty easy. Of course, it was 1945, and everybody was coming home for the military. The war was over. Not many people were going into the Naval Academy. So that kind of helped, I think, in the whole process of getting an appointment and getting there. But I was very happy because otherwise, maybe I couldn't have afforded to go to college. Anyway.
You majored in engineering?
At that time, everybody majored in engineering, yes. If somebody said, what is your concentration, it would have been electrical engineering. But every student took exactly the same curriculum, except for language. There were different languages. But other than that, it's all the same.
Mark Stanford wanted to know, were you scared going to first grade? And where was your first grade? And do you remember anything about your first grade?
I remember very, very little about the first grade or about kindergarten, for that matter.
You were in Las Vegas?
It was in Las Vegas, and all of the first 8 grades plus kindergarten were all in one block, one big double block. And the only thing I remember is what I've been told and what I've seen in photographs. And my mother liked to tell a story about trying to find me one morning, and it turns out that I had followed my brother Scott to kindergarten, to school, and I was in the line waiting to go into class when mother found me.
Just follow me.
I don't remember that, of course, but she liked to tell a story.
Well, you were about 3?
Probably. 3.5, yeah, something.
What about that story of you being barefoot? Like kid being barefoot.
Oh, yes. Yeah, I like to tell a story about the 3rd grade. It was October, and my pencil fell off the desk, and I was kind of groping around on the floor trying to find my pencil on the floor. And I looked up ahead of me, and I looked over the side, and everybody had shoes on. I looked all over the class. I was the only person without shoes. And I thought, gee whiz.
That's a true story?
These poor guys, their moms make them put shoes on. I thought I was the luckiest one. The other story about kindergarten is that there's a very popular photograph of our kindergarten class because nearly all of us were together in kindergarten and graduated, which is unusual. But what was distinctive is that for the picture, most of the boys had on white shirts and a jacket or a tie, and they were all pale white. And I had on overalls, and I was as brown as an Indian. So I really stood out.
Because you were outside playing all day, right?
I played outside.
In Las Vegas sunshine.
In Las Vegas sunshine, yeah.
So, Grandpa, with just so I can edit this out later so I know where we are. What games did you play when you were a kid? That's from Brian Stanford.
Well, our activities that I remember a lot are, we played a lot of cowboys and Indians, especially when we were at my uncle's farm, and we would make rubber guns by cutting out pieces of wood and wrapping a clothespin at the back, and then we'd stretch a band of an inner tube from the front of the gun back to the clothespin, and we'd dash around and shoot at each other with these long rubber bands. What was especially exciting is that we would play around an old adobe building that was built when the first settlers ever got to Moapa Valley, and it still had the little openings in the side of the walls where you could peek through and shoot through in case the Indians were attacked. So it made it pretty realistic.
As good cowboys as Indians as you can get.
That's real cowboys. So, but then the other thing we like to do is we'd build cave forts, and we dig these big holes in the ground with entrance places, and we find some boards and put over the top and cover the boards with dirt, and then we'd spend a couple of days building these things. Then we'd finally get down inside, and then we'd look at each other and say, now what are we supposed to do? One thing we did was we'd go find some dried grapevines, and we'd cut off a 4-inch length and get a match, and you could smoke it. You could puff on it. It would kind of keep lighted. We thought that was pretty risque. The only problem was that my mom never cared. It didn't do much good. We had to quit that because nobody worried about it.
Very good. So I think the question here is from, we have two questions. One from Jimmy Sutehall. It says, what varsity sports did you play, and what was your favorite moment?
Well, the biggest event of the year was kind of realized kind of later on. We had a superb football year. I had played a lot of touch football when I was 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th grade, and never really thought about going out for varsity football until one of the assistant coaches started a 6-man team, and they came around and recruited me on this 6-man tackle football team, and we had a great season, and I really enjoyed it. And then they wanted me to join in the senior year. They wanted me to join the varsity, and so I joined, and we kept winning games. And we had a great line, and they would open up holes, and I'd play halfback. And once I got through a hole, then all one had to do was a couple of jukes to get around the halfback, and you have a touchdown. So, well, there was one other guy named Benson who was much bigger than I was, and a great athlete, and everybody knew he was going to be a big star in college, which eventually he was. And but the irony of the whole situation is that I was making more touchdowns, and I got All-State.
Is this the season you went on to be undefeated?
Yes, and it turns out that we were undefeated and unscored upon for the whole season, and that includes a big school in San Bernardino. Of course, a lot of little schools in Nevada. Well, someone looked at the records and found quite an amazing thing that no team had ever scored 2 consecutive first downs against us. So we thought maybe we were in the Guinness Book of World Records for high school football.
We have little Jack Boris asking, what did you do when you were a kid?
In Las Vegas, about every third lot was vacant. And in many places there were 3 or 4 lots together that were vacant. So there were plenty of places to play softball. We didn't have organized teams. We just get together on one of these vacant lots and put down some bases and we'd play away. And after school, all until it got dark.
What was your, this is from little Jack Boris, what was your favorite food when you were little?
I think when on Sunday we'd have some meat and potatoes and gravy. And that was the treat of the week. The big meal of the day was at noon, which is, I think, had been everybody's tradition in those days. At night, we had bread and milk. We'd just break up some bread and pour some milk on it, and a little piece of cheese. But on the weekend, we'd have a pretty big dinner with potatoes and gravy.
Here's another good one from Jack Boris. Says, Grandma, Grandpa, did you ever get timeouts?
I don't remember a timeout.
No, that was more recent than
Which is kind of amazing when I think about it.
Is there an
But I
alternative?
have been told that at one point my dad came home and found me tied to the kitchen table with a small rope.
I call that a timeout.
And he told Mom not to do that again.
This should be, Kati Sutehall says, I have 2 pets, and she goes on to describe them, which I didn't write down here. But did you 2 have any pets when you were little?
We had no pets, and I don't think any of my friends had pets. It just was not something that people did, which is kind of surprising. I think, and probably the reason is that both of my parents had grown up on the farm with lots of farm animals, and they were probably happy to be in the city. Not have any more. Yeah, you would have to buy food for a pet. We just barely had enough food for us.
This, Brian asks, where was your middle school and what was it like? So I need to know where you were still in Las Vegas.
Yes. We didn't have a separate school called middle school. It was either elementary, which is kindergarten through 8th, and that was all together in one block with a set of about 10 buildings. And then you moved to high school, which was a couple blocks away, and it was all in one building.